Hey, what's up, blue collar business owner? Welcome back to the Blue Collar Prosperity Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Maskill, where we focus on helping guide you to have a prosperous blue collar business. Today, we have with us Craig Jooste. Craig has been in the home service space for over 20 years. He co founded the Local Handyman Group and grew the brand nationally as their CEO. He then sold the Local Handyman Group in 2023 and started growing Genie Senior Services as their president. He also has a business coaching program called the Foundational Four, which is purpose built for home service businesses. So that is Craig Jooste. Welcome, Craig. Thank you so much for being here. What's going on today?
Awesome. Thanks for having me. We are right in the middle of franchising heating up, so we are busy, but yeah, happy to be here and sharing information that we can of potential landmines we may or may not have stepped on and how to avoid them. And yeah, just a little bit, I think, a couple of takeaways from some of the business coaching that we do with franchise partners that buy into our brands that I can share and people can use in their own businesses.
Awesome. Super excited about that and super grateful for you sharing all the information, all the experience you have over the 20 years, all the landmines you stepped on, the ones you avoided, the ones you stepped on more than once. So give our listeners kind of an insight into how your journey started 20 years ago to get you where you are today.
Sure. So I am an immigrant. I grew up in South Africa, moved to Canada in 1988. My parents have always been entrepreneurial, so I've always had that bug. Moved out to Vancouver in 98. Started with a company called 1-800-GOT-JUNK, very well-known franchise brand. Was on their leadership team for a decade. You really get a lot of, if you have the entrepreneurial juices flowing, they make sure that you're hypercharged. So we used to say we got a mini MBA working there. I was with 1-800-GOT-JUNK for 10 years. I was about to leave. I was asked to start a new emerging brand called Wow One Day Painting, one of their sister companies. Got to launch that from inception. So it really gave me that kind of wholesome, fulsome view of how to franchise, not just corporate operations or field ops or marketing. And after running that, my wife and I decided, thank you for all the learning, but why are we doing this for someone else? And started the Local Handyman Group. Started in Vancouver, one location, proof of concept. My wife actually ran the first location. I said, run it like a franchise and let's just see. After 3 months, she had no background in home repair or anything, but we knew how to sell, market, and make customers feel special. And started franchising that. So I grew that from Vancouver out to Ottawa over 6 years. Last year, we sold that to a couple of guys, beastie guys that have multiple businesses, and it was time for them to bring their expertise in and for us to exit. So I stepped out as the CEO and co-founder, will always be the co-founder, I guess, but stepped out as the CEO there. And it was great. It's very different starting a business when you're the one writing the checks versus running a business for someone. And it was quite eye-opening. My wife and I both had really good jobs, quit them. Vancouver's not a cheap place to live. Second mortgage to our house to start Handyman. And we had just said, we have no room to fail, that we got to push this thing, and we grinded. And then we acquired half of Genie Senior Services, which we are now growing. So owner, operator, technician, loved the business in our business partner, Norm. Started the company, knew nothing about franchising. And we said, hey, why don't we partner with your passion and systems operationally? And with our background in franchising, let's grow this thing and make it big. And that's what we're currently doing. And apart from that, do a little bit of business coaching on the side for people that need some specific help tailored to them using a program I came up with called the Foundational Four, which we can talk about a little bit more because I think it'll be more applicable to everyone listening. But just a little bit of my background. My wife and I are business partners, been together for 26 years, been running our businesses together in the same house 24/7. We go out for happy hour quite a bit just to escape the house and for some sanity. But yeah, it's been a great journey.
Awesome. Love it, Craig. Thank you so much for really giving a lot of good insights into the journey. I know a lot of people listening. I've talked to business owners ever since I've been in the business world of they want multi-unit. They want a franchise. They want to not be the one, turning the wrench. They don't want to be the one answering the phone. They just want to franchise this thing out. They want multiple locations, all that kind of stuff. Obviously, we've got to walk before we run. What would you tell that person who says, I want to have, before we even get to franchising, let's just look at multi-unit, say,
Yep.
what do you tell those people that think or believe that they are ready to go open a second location?
So I've always said, run your business like you're going to sell it, right? So normally someone's selling their business, they make sure their books are in order. They understand their numbers. They can tell someone who's buying the business, hey, this is the business. This is my average job size. This is my gross margin. This is my net, etc. Well, a lot of people don't know that, shockingly. They'll look at their bank account and say, there's 20 grand in the bank account. It's not going up or down. I guess we're doing okay. And so what I would say is, it's all systems and people, right? So if you're in a business, you're either the tech or you've transitioned from being the tech to having a team and you're working on the business, is to have strong systems that are duplicatable. So if I'm working in, I have unit 1 up and running, whether that's a truck and a trailer or a truck, that can be a unit. Multi-unit can be literally multi-units, not necessarily multi-cities. But if you have strong systems in, here's how we operate as a brand, here's our brand promise, here's what we deliver, and then the whole foundational 4 that I talk about so much is vision, mission, mindset, right? Where am I going? What am I doing? Why am I doing this? How am I feeling about it? Foundation 2 is revenue as a guiding light. So it's not just money, 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 because you have to find the balance between, passion, heart, and then money. The third one is demand generation, so marketing. So if I have this, I know how I'm feeling, what I'm doing, where I'm going. I know what my revenue targets are. And then now, what do I need to do to hit those revenue targets? So understanding my average job size, understanding where my leads are coming from, what that funnel looks like, and how those leads are going to convert into that revenue. And then the fourth one is on the foundations is unit economics. So understanding what's my gross margin, what's my cost of goods, what's my net, so that as you look at that, I'd rather have a $500,000 business and I'm making 150 grand in profit than $1 million business and I'm making 75 grand in profit, because you have all that risk and work you're doing and it's not translating into actual profitability. So I think the first thing for someone to really understand is, do I have the systems and the know-how in my business, and how am I going to duplicate that to the next thing? That's what we do in franchising, right? Is systems, brand, promise, vision, mission, goals, worksheets, and we take someone and go, okay, let's take you through all this stuff. When you get to in Genie, when you get to your first truck and trailer, and it's 15 jobs a month with an average job size of 3K, that's 45K. Between a pack and a move, that's where your efficiency is at about 90% for that unit. Now it's time to look for the next truck and trailer. And then now we need to amp up networking and marketing, etc., to then drive leads to not just fill the one that's full, but fill the next one. So I think it's really understanding those before you jump on the next thing.
Love it. And that the foundation forward just makes it super simple. First, we got to know where we're going, vision, mission, mindset. We got to be all in on that. Then we got to know how much revenue we actually want to do. So have our revenue targets, number 2. Then demand generation. We got to know how are we going to get to that revenue. Not only are we going to generate the leads, but then we're going to convert the leads. We're going to have the right average ticket. We're going to have all the things in place. And then the unit economics, again, without that cash flow, doesn't really matter. And the example you gave is perfect. Me being a fractional CFO, talk to people all the time who think, well, if I just get to $2 million, if I just get to $3 million, it'll solve all these problems. But what it really does, and you've seen it over your 20 years, is it just makes the problem bigger, right? Like, if you don't have your unit economics right already, growing your business will still make sure those unit economics are not correct. And it's just going to be a bigger problem that you have to solve. Versus if we get it right, like you said, if we get it right at 500,000, then we can confidently scale to $1 million. So let's kind of take the conversation there. We've figured that out. We've got multi-units. Now we want to franchise. A lot of people want to franchise. Give the listener out there who is interested in franchising their concept some of the ins and outs, things that we have to do, the non-negotiables, the things that we need to avoid. What really needs to be in place? Because I feel a lot of people believe they can franchise within like, no time, and they have no proof of concept. They don't have a business, they don't have a unit running on its own. But what are some of those non-negotiable things they have to have in place in order to confidently scale via franchising?
Sure. So I have good friends that are accountants and lawyers, but I don't like accountants and lawyers. So you need to know the numbers. You need to have your books in order. When it comes to franchising, whether it's Canada or the States, there's different countries that don't have big franchising laws. But there's quite a lot of technical, legal, and accounting items you need to have in place. So, some of the basics: is your brand trademarked? And is that in the US or Canada, and where are you franchising? Do you understand franchise law? There is a lot of complexity. I've taken two people through this as a consultant, doing kind of on this, helping them on the side to say, do you understand that you need an ops manual that says X, Y, and Z? Do you have a trademark? Do you know that all your books have to be done in a certain audited process, which is like in Canada, it's called a review engagement. So we do a review with the CRA every year, and it's 10 times what it costs to just do a normal corp filing. But you need that because those books need to go into your disclosure document. You need to disclose properly. You need to understand the legal ins and outs of not making earnings claims so that you're going to get sued down the road if something goes sideways. So there is actually quite a lot of technical on the accounting and legal side, and there's costs associated. So, when someone says, oh, you want a franchise agreement, it's going to be 25 grand. They're like, for a piece of paper? It's like, yep. And the same with, hey, instead of doing your $1,500 corp filing, it's going to be $13,000 because we have to ask you these 300 questions because it's in a review form. So there's a lot that goes into the franchising side. It's not as simple as possible. And I think people that do it on the simple side can get into a lot of legal issues down the road. An agreement, when it gets pulled out, if there's an issue, but normally, if people are like, hey, I can do a deal on the back of a napkin, if everyone's happy and no one complains, it's a non-issue. But you do these things in case, and things happen in people's lives, right? So I think truly understanding, in the States becomes even more complex because there's 14 registration states. So you can go into Florida and file your FDD, your disclosure document, and it's a quick filing and it's done. You have to register in California, and it can take 4 weeks or 16 weeks, just depending on where things are in the state. So you do have lawyers that can help you with that. But there is a lot of costs associated with the documentation side. And then do you have a trademark? It has to be filed. It has to be approved. Those take years. You can have a filed trademark, as an example, in your documents. And then when it's actually, an application trademark. And then when it's filed, you just change the wording in your documentation. But there is a lot to it. And the other part is, it's not like going public, but you are growing with other people's money and trust. And so you are bringing, we call our franchisees franchise partners, because they are partners in the business, and our success depends on them, and how we support them and how they do, and that we bring the right people in. So franchising can seem sexy. I know a lot of people that have grown multi-unit without franchising that do extremely well and have full control of everything. You do have full control as a franchisor, but you have other people involved that you just need to be aware of.
Yeah. And those people aren't cheap, like you said. But if you have, even going back to your foundational floor, if you have that vision, the mission, the mindset, you have all that in place, there is obviously, you've proven it. Other companies have proven it. The Neighborlies of the world have proven it, that it is a very viable model if you do it the right way, take your time, and understand that it is a whole process and not just, hey, I want a franchise, let's go sell a franchise,
Right.
in the city across the state starting tomorrow. One of the things you mentioned there is we can also just scale by owning everything. There's plenty of, successful, especially look at the private equity world. They scale across the country and they own all of those companies. So let's kind of look at that option as well for scaling, where do you see most business owners get stuck when they are scaling their business? They own it 100%. They're not going the franchise route, but they just want to grow their business. Where do you see most business owners getting stuck?
I think the roadmap, the lack of, is okay. I want to get bigger. Well, what does that mean, right? So, do you have the capital to expand? Do you need more equipment, right? Depending on what business you're in. Home services is, I love it because there aren't leases and expensive build outs, and half the time a new unit could be a wrap truck that's costing you $1,200 a month, right? A pickup truck or whatever it is. But I think really understanding what does it look like, because as people grow, you grow your business, you get to say, you have a tech or a widget, whatever you're doing, and you get to about 80%, and it's like, okay, we're ticking along now. We kind of understand our numbers, blah, 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 blah. Now I want to go to the next and have 2 of these units. Well, your growth, your expenses go up, and your growth doesn't go up as fast as your expenses. So you really need to understand that you are now making an investment over the next 3 to 6 months into this next unit that's going to yield, not tomorrow, but in a couple of months. So I think people just need to get that through their head, because I think people get stuck on, some people can just be a little bit scared. It's like, okay, it's more people, more stuff, more equipment, more product, whatever it is. But I think if you have a clear vision of what does the next one look like, once you do it once, I think going to unit 3 and 4 and 5 is easier, because the scariness is gone, and you've now actually gone through what does that cycle look like, what does the next 12 months look like of adding this second location, unit, whatever it may be. And I think if you have your head wrapped around that, and if we were going to bleed a couple of grand a month or whatever for the next 3 months, we have that put away, and worse, medium, good budget. If you can live with the worst, you're gonna be okay. But I think people get a little bit stuck on, okay, how's this gonna work out? And I think that comes to that clear vision and actual planning.
Yeah, and I mean, I see it all the time as a CFO. Is how do we balance still maintaining our cash flow, while also still growing, right? And like, I think Vern Harnish talks about it, like the black hole, like going from 1 million to 5 million is like, we've got to lay out money for things we need before they actually fully recoup and start, being worth what we need. Like, we need a second CSR before they're 100% at capacity. Right. How long does it take to get them to capacity so that the business can fund it? And then, like you said, is it 3 months? Is it 6 months? How much cash do we have to eat until we get there? And a lot of times it's tricky to forecast that, project that. And a lot of times we don't realize it's an issue. You've probably ran into it. Your clients run into it. We don't realize it's an issue until it's an issue. Like, oh man, we should have seen this coming. Now we're out of cash, or now we're struggling. Our line of credit's maxed out because this is taking longer than we expected, or we didn't anticipate this, or we're not hitting these numbers, or whatever it might be. So with that being said, what have you found kind of the best strategy to really kind of, whether it's overcome that, balance that of, hey, I want to keep growing. I know exactly, like, we know exactly where we want to go, but now we got to kind of figure out how are we actually going to get there, and what do we need to do next, and how do we pay for it and all that. What are a couple of things that you found have worked over the years of kind of mapping that out, strategizing that out, and then going to execute it?
Sure. I think it's doing the kind of eating the elephant one bite at a time, right? So we look at, I'll sit down with franchise partners, whether they are new with us or they've been with us for a number of years, and we'll go, okay, where are we in the business? So we literally do a SWOT, so strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats, as to where they are in that moment of time. I'm new, I'm not known, I need to get the brand out there. What's my brand play, blah, 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 blah. Or I'm at this level now. Okay, so what are our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats? And it literally, I always joke, I'm a simple guy. Like, I have forms that we share where someone prints out a SWOT, and I'm like, scribble on it. Like, just go old school with the pen, scribble on it, print out 5, I don't care, and then let's review it. And it's amazing how people kind of can really crystallize things as they're writing and thinking about it and taking a weekend where their head's clear, then it's the like literally quarterly budget. So what does the next 3 months look like based on what we currently know and based on we're guesstimating, but what is, a budget's a budget until you start, and then it's forecasts and actuals, you know what I mean? So I think doing it by quarter. So, perfect world, it's April 1st, it's springtime, we've kept whatever, we mow lawns, we have a truck, we have a couple of lawnmowers, and guys, I want another truck, a couple of lawnmowers. So what does that look like? Okay, I've got these expenses that are going to hit in April because I have to actually buy some stuff. I got to lease some stuff. What does April, May, and June look like? And I think if you condense it into small little chunks, it's not as overwhelming to plan. No one likes to just sit down unless you're a corporate strategist and planner. No one wants to just sit there and overthink stuff. So I think it's those little bits of what does it look like? And I think people can then take that step. But it's also you have to start, right? Like a lot of people overcomplicate and next month, or we'll wait for this or whatever. Sometimes you got to go to the island, burn the boats, and you just got to make the island work. That's if you're all in. And so I do think just starting, I had breakfast with a friend of mine the other day who's left the corporate world, now figuring out what he wants to do business-wise, and then started talking about all this analysis and planning. And I said, at some point, you just got to start, right? So at some point, you got to believe in yourself enough or not to go and buy that next truck, buy the 2 lawnmowers, and market more, because that's what you need to do. And sometimes it's overcomplicating with all these fancy things when it's like, what does April, May, and June look like? And can I duplicate that in July, August, and September? So for me, it's starting with the small things.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned that, doing something as simple as a SWOT analysis. Like in 2024, we're inundated with technology and AI and social media, like all these bright, shiny objects. But like literally, if we take the time to go back to basics, like you said, take 30 minutes and do a SWOT analysis on your business, that'll tell you a lot of things of, hey, this is what we actually need to work on, instead of just chasing the next thing you hear on a podcast or things you read in a Facebook group, or somebody told you at the supply house about this cool new piece of technology. A lot of times we just got to go back take the time to go back to the basics. And hey, the next 30 minutes, put your phone on Do Not Disturb, put on some good music, and map it out. Like it's really not that difficult. We overcomplicate it. And like to what you said, just start. One of my favorite quotes ever. I live by it. I tell everybody the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. You just got to start, because what it'll do, to your point, if we burn the boats, it'll force us to make that work, right? Like if we buy the mowers, we buy the truck. Now we've already done the math, assuming like, okay, yes, this will work. We know the demand's there. We will then be forced to go get more customers because we burned the boats. We bought the mower, bought the truck, hired the person. Now let's go do it. And if we have historical data of, hey, historically, April, May, and June, this is what we do. If we do X, Y, and Z, this is what we can do. Now let's go do it.
I have a friend, sorry to...
no, go ahead, fire away.
I have a buddy of mine that does a lot of business coaching as well. And we talk about it all the time. Like coming from where I got junk, it was a lot of guerrilla marketing. And one of my buddies always says, be an influencer in your neighborhood versus trying to be fancy on Insta and doing whatever for the gram. And it's sometimes going out and spending $100 on lawn signs, spending $150 on door knockers, knocking on doors. And where we live, it's a lot of single family homes. I drive by and I'm like, wow, this 5-block area. Look at all these houses. You could knock on doors. And what if I got one person on each street, just one out of 30 houses, so a 3% conversion to say, can I mow your lawn, or can I paint your house, or can I do whatever? And then I use, like, part of our coaching is called the 3 R's: repeat, referral, re-engage. And what if I can make that person into a raving fan that tells their 2 neighbors? And it's like, forget about people bitch to me about Google did this to my listing, or I totally get digital media. I think it's great. It's a wide net. But if you have a home services business, go into your neighborhood, knock on doors, leave door hangers, have a nicely branded vehicle that you're driving up and down the street while you're doing it. Put out some lawn signs and ask for forgiveness from the city later. I can tell you doing those things will actually get you customers versus complaining that your Google My Business listing got taken down because of whatever it is.
No, it is so true. Like going back to like those have been tried and true since people started doing, like people do business with people at the end of the day. Even if you have a technician that works for you, once they knock on that door, they're doing business with that technician, Joe the technician. They're not doing business with the company. Now, at the end of the day, they're going to keep seeing your truck and the yard signs and the door hangers and the mailers and all that kind of stuff. But it really is like when you can build, like you said, customers into raving fans, they will do a lot of the work for you then because they want to support you. If you're that local celebrity that cleans houses, they're like, man, we love supporting Craig. Craig is a local dude, lives in the neighborhood. And if we need this service anyway. We see him everywhere. His trucks are everywhere. Why don't we do business with him? And then you give them a reason to continue to talk about it. So love just going back to basics for whatever it is. Whether you need to do a SWOT analysis, whether you need to do a budget, whether you need to do marketing, we do get so caught up in all the other things when really at the end of the day, you know, it's going to come down to those relationships you're creating. So we're going to start wrapping this up, Craig. You've given us a ton of different things we can do, a ton of great insight, landmines to avoid, things we should be doing, foundational for things we need in place if we want to franchise, things we need to look at if we're going to have, you know, multi-location or multi-unit. But if you could just recommend everybody listening to do one thing to take immediate action within the next 24 hours to move their business forward, what would that one thing be?
To me, it's a toss-up between vision, mission, mindset, and the SWOT. Where are you today? So I would say, if you could sit down, when I got junk, it was called the painted picture. Okay. What am I doing? Where am I going? We used to call it leaning into the future. What does it look like in 12 months from now? If I can lean into my office, into my truck, what are people talking about? What does it smell like? What are we doing? And I think if people can have a clear, concise vision of where they're going to be in 12 months, you will make it happen. Read the book, The Secret. Every time we go to our favorite restaurant, I say to my wife, we're going to get rock star VIP parking right up front because I'm not going to say, put it out there, those vibes that parking's going to be terrible. I swear every time we pull up the restaurant, someone backs out right in front of the door and we pull in. I'm going to be late. What happens? Every light is red. I'm on time. I'm planned. This is going to be an awesome meeting. Every green light. Oh, crap. I'm here 15 minutes early. So it is take stock of where you are right now, where your head's at. What does the future look like in 12 months? Because then you can build to that. And I think if people take a little bit of time to work on the business, Gerber, E-Myth, another great book to read, is working on it versus being stuck in the weeds. You're always going to be stuck in the weeds. You're going to do the same thing every day, and you're going to be at 10 grand a month for 20 years.
It is so true. And just setting aside that time to be proactive because it's really easy to just wake up and fight fires all day because the phone's going to ring, email's going to ding, you're going to get text message, you're going to get distracted. Before you know it, it's 5 o'clock and you don't really know what happened other than you survived the day. And to your point at the very beginning, if we don't have that destination, we don't have that vision, that mission, that's what we're going to do. We're just going to wake up, survive the day, the week, the month, the year. And like you said, 20 years later, we're doing the same thing. So love it. And that book that Craig mentioned, one is the E-Myth. If you guys haven't read it, it's tried and true. Read it, Michael Gerber. And then the other one is The Secret. I'll have to check that one out myself. Craig Jooste, thanks again for coming on the show, sharing your journey and providing a ton of actionable advice, experience, insight for all the blue collar business owners out there as we continue our journey to prosperity. But before we sign off, where can our listeners go to keep in touch with you, learn more about everything you got going on?
Sure. A couple of spots, GenieSeniorServices.com. It's the brand we're franchising currently. You can go to CraigJooste.com, which is my business coaching site as well, if you want to reach out to me there. Email I'm on most of the time because of Genie is Craig@GenieSeniorServices.com. You can reach out for anything. I am happy to talk to people, help, answer. It doesn't have to be consulting agreements and all kinds of stuff. You got to do some good in the world. You got to pass on some information. And if we can do that where we can help, then the journey is worth it.
Awesome, Craig. Super grateful for your time today. Appreciate all the insight. We will talk to you soon, sir.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Craig. And before you head out, if you are ready to have a business that produces consistent positive cash flow so that you can have a financially healthy business and achieve your personal goals, let's make it happen. Head on over to thebluecollaradvisors.com/call to book a free financial assessment of your business. I will dive into the financials of your business, take a look at what's going on, find any red flags as well as opportunities that you have in your business. Let's make it happen. Again, thebluecollaradvisors.com/call. Until next time, remember, what got you here won't get you there. If you're ready for different results, it's time to start doing things differently.